WFYI podcast brought to you by Bloomington, Indiana, an American college town offering food and drink, college sports, outdoor activities, live music, cool art, and good times daily. Everyone is welcome in Bloomington. More information at visitbloomington.com.
This is WFYI News Now. It's March 13th, and I'm Abriana Herron. On today's show, Governor Holcomb signed a bill that improves access to long-acting reversible contraceptives. Lawmakers reflect on the many education-related bills that passed in the legislative session. And community colleges offer crucial access to higher education, and most students say they aim to earn four-year degrees. But fewer than 1 in 10 Indiana community college students achieve that goal.
I was at Ivy Tech, right? And this is me. Like, this number, I'm a part of that.
Those stories coming up. But first, the City of Indianapolis announced yesterday it received roughly $12 million to support homelessness and housing initiatives. As WFYI's Ben Thorpe reports, the competitive funding award comes in part because of data that shows Indianapolis has been reducing the number of unhoused individuals within the city.
The $12 million from the Department of Housing and Urban Development is a historic investment in Indianapolis, representing a 20% increase in last year's funding and a 170% increase since 2016. Mayor Joe Hogsett says the funds are a recognition of the city's many community partnerships to address homelessness.
Put simply, our partnership here in Indianapolis is working.
Hogsett says there will be more announcements in the coming weeks of additional increases to the city's housing stock. Critics argue that the city has not invested aggressively enough in providing housing to chronically homeless individuals, pointing to similar cities like Milwaukee, which has touted a 92% reduction in homelessness since 2015. I'm Ben Thorpe.
The governor signed a bill Monday that requires hospitals to ensure Medicaid members have the option during a delivery visit to get a long-acting reversible contraceptive, also known as a LARC. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Abigail Ruman reports the new law also requires Medicaid to cover the cost of keeping a LARC option stocked.
The law specifies that hospitals are only required to provide subdermal LARCs during the delivery visit. This means Medicaid only covers the cost of keeping a subdermal option stocked. Medical providers and some lawmakers raise concerns about how this might impact patient access and choice. They say hospitals are likely to only stock what is required and covered. Representative Rita Fleming says many Medicaid members who give birth miss their follow-up appointment where they typically get a LARC. She says the law increases access for people who need it and does not prevent discussions between patients and providers about other forms of LARCs, such as IUDs. The new law is set to expire June 30th, 2025, meaning lawmakers would have to work on legislation during the next budget session to extend it. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Abigail Ruman.
Lawmakers passed a flurry of bills this year that will have a wide impact on education in Indiana. Those included efforts to promote work-based learning and advance policies for school curricula. Indiana Public Broadcasting's Kirsten Adair reports on lawmakers' responses to another of their top priorities, how to combat low reading scores.
One of the more controversial bills was a proposal to hold back nearly all third graders who failed the state's reading proficiency exam. Republican Senator Jeff Rotz hailed the bill's passage as a win for Indiana students.
We accomplished what we set out to do, and it came to reading in third grade, making sure that students have every chance possible, personally, to be able to pass iRead 3s.
Some lawmakers, like Democratic Senator Fadi Kadora, hoped for a different solution.
We had many missed opportunities. I started session with legislation to actually deal with the literacy problem in our state by proposing a universal pre-K.
Kadora says his proposal did not advance because it was too expensive. He says he hopes lawmakers will continue to prioritize reading with more funding during next year's budget session. For Indiana Public Broadcasting, I'm Kirsten Adair.
And for our final story today, start at a community college, then transfer to a four-year school. It seems like a simple plan that could save students a lot of money. But new federal data estimates that fewer than 1 in 10 Indiana community college students go on to earn bachelor's degrees. From WFYI's Education Desk, Dylan Pierce McCoy reports that's one of the lowest success rates in the country.
23-year-old Tyreek Swanigan dreamed of going to Indiana University all the way back in 4th grade.
I was like, I'm going to IU. Like, I had everything IU, flags, shirts, and that was just my college.
But when it came time to enroll, Swanigan decided to go to Ivy Tech Community College in Indianapolis. It was flexible and close to home.
I could still have my full-time job and then make it to my classes on time.
There are hundreds of thousands of students like Swanigan who enroll in 2-year community colleges with the aim of eventually earning bachelor's degrees. Community colleges offer crucial access to higher education. They serve a diverse population. They're open to everyone, and they're affordable.
The community college transfer pathway is especially important in terms of making sure that everyone has access to a bachelor's and graduate degree and the sort of future opportunity and economic earnings that come along with it.
John Fink is with the Community College Research Center.
As the costs of higher ed have gone up, more and more students and families have really been looking at community colleges as that sort of cheap, affordable way to get to a bachelor's degree.
But that system isn't working for the vast majority of students. Recent data from the U.S. Education Department reveals that only a fraction of community college students go on to earn bachelor's degrees. Indiana has one of the lowest success rates in the country. When I told Ivy Tech student Tyreek Swanigan that just 7% of Indiana students go on to earn 4-year degrees, he was stunned.
It me off, honestly, because I was at Ivy Tech, right? And this is me. Like, this number, I'm a part of that.
Swanigan started at Ivy Tech in 2019. At first, he did well. But when the pandemic pushed classes online, he struggled and eventually he withdrew. Swanigan works in a K-12 school. He wants to lead a school one day, and he needs a bachelor's degree to do it. But his path has been rocky. Last year, Swanigan transferred to a private 4-year university. That school told him they wouldn't take all his community college classes. Swanigan says that college wasn't a good fit, and he's headed back to Ivy Tech this spring. Lots of students lose credits when they transfer. That forces them to take costly extra classes.
I did all this work for the university to be like, we're not taking that.
Indiana leaders know the state has a problem, and they've tried to make it easier for community college students to earn 4-year degrees. Back in 2013, Indiana passed a law that requires state colleges and universities to create transfer pathways for students who complete associate degrees. Mary Jane Michalak is Vice President of Legal and Public Affairs at Ivy Tech.
The student is a nursing student and they get the nursing degree from Ivy Tech. It transfers seamlessly into a bachelor's degree of nursing program.
Michalak says that's just one of the changes the state has made to improve transfers over the last decade. Because the new federal data followed students for 8 years, the people it tracked started back in 2014.
10 years is a long time, and there have been a lot of changes since then, both in state law and in the administration of institutions.
But the system is still complicated, and it can be hard for students to navigate. The Indiana Commission for Higher Education says they plan to release data on transfers in the near future. It'll be the first time in more than 6 years that the state publishes details on how many community college students transfer and complete 4-year degrees. Without that data, we don't know whether the state's efforts are working. I'm Dylan Pierce-McCoy.
That's all for today's episode of WFYI News Now. Our podcast is produced by the following people who live in your community: Darian Benson, Drew Dodlin, Kendall Antron, who composed the music for this podcast, and me, Abriana Herron. Our news director is Sarah Neal Estes. If you like today's episode, remember to subscribe and share, and follow WFYI on Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube to check in on our newsroom throughout the day. Thanks for listening. We'll be back tomorrow.